shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. You see, when sin came onto the planet, the diet of mankind changed. But not only did it change, from then onwards, when Adam and Eve and the descendants of Adam and Eve were to walk around, they would see the thorns and the thistles, and they would know immediately, or they would remember immediately, that those were not there before sin. And today, anyone that, even a farmer, somebody like myself that lives in a semi-arid area, we know how painful the thorns are in that area. And every time I stub my toe on one of these thorns, we realized the Lord is reminding us that's as a result of sin. For 2,500 years, Jesus showed mankind the plan of salvation through nature. So Adam and Eve could show Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel could go through if they had, like Abel, if he had descendants, Cain, his descendants, there was a path to show the world and those that lived on it how the world is as a result of sin. The descendants of Noah had the same thing. All the fossil records, the bones in the stones, the layers in the mountains, pointing towards a flood. So for 2,500 years, the Lord showed the plan of salvation through nature. Right? For 1,500 years after that, the Lord has showed the plan of salvation in the sanctuary. Listen carefully. For 1,500 years, the Lord has shown the plan of salvation in the sanctuary. And for the last 2,000 years, the Lord Jesus has shown the plan of salvation in himself as the sanctuary. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I've shown you many things. We've been through, even for unto us a child is born. What a powerful message about how Jesus shows his movements in the sanctuary. Do you remember the layout of the sanctuary? Have a look at this graphic again. John 1 verse 1 to 2 told us that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And he, Jesus, was in the beginning with God. And I showed you the graphic there, how Jesus was in the most holy, in the presence of the Almighty. And the Word became flesh. You see that movement? The Word became flesh. And we read there in Hebrews, the veil pointing to Jesus' flesh. Jesus grew, waxed strong in spirit. He was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. Now there's a beautiful parallel I want to give you about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. Let's read it from Luke. Now Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast. And when they had fulfilled the days, as they returned, the child Jesus tarried behind in Jerusalem, and Joseph and his mother knew not of it. But they, supposing him to have been in the company, went a day's journey, and they sought him amongst their kinsfolk and acquaintance. And when they found him not, they turned back again to Jerusalem, seeking him. And it came to pass that after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. And when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said to him, Son, why have you done this to us? Why hast thou thus dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. And he said unto them, How is it that you sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my father's business? Here's an interaction that's going on between Jesus and his parents. There's a moment here when Jesus is he lags or stays behind in Jerusalem. His parents go out. They search for him, and they freak out because he's missing. They think he's dead. They search for him, and 3 days later, imagine the trauma they must have been going through. They sought for him sorrowing, which means they thought he was dead. And 3 days later, they found him alive and teaching, preaching, and busy with the Lord's work in the temple. And then he says, Did you not know that yes, it might have seemed like I was dead to you, but did you not know that I should be about my Father's business? Now, look at the parallels for the moment. Let's go back to the graphic. Remember this graphic? Well, with Jesus growing up, remember that he's at the age of 12 would have been represented in the holy place. Now they returned, and the child Jesus tarried behind with them. So Mary and Joseph are leaving Jerusalem. right? The holy place where the worship was done. Jesus stayed behind. For days they searched everywhere for him, and they were sad because they thought he was dead. They searched up and down and left and right, but after 3 days they found him sitting in the temple. Death on Friday, burial on Saturday, resurrection on Sunday. A beautiful little parallel here that Jesus is already leading the people to realize that for 3 days it might seem as if he's dead to the world. But if we're looking for him, we must understand that he'll be busy in his temple. And when Jesus said to Israel, he said to them, "You've been building this temple, but in 3 days I'll raise it up." He was talking about the temple of his body, but also that he would continue his ministry as the high priest. Let's go back to the graphic. So when Jesus was 12 years old, he said, "Wist ye not that I must be about my Father's business?" Meaning here in the holy place, did you not know that I must be about my Father's business? Well, Satan is an ardent student of Bible prophecy.